Welcome back. In the last class, we have learned about conductors. Today, we will learn about dielectrics. Actually, dielectrics are insulators that will allow the passage of electric field without conducting. An important application of these dielectrics is in capacitors. And what are capacitors? Capacitors are devices which are used to store the charge. So, we will look into dielectrics first. As already told, a dielectric is an insulating material that transmits electric field without conducting. All of us know what is a insulator. Insulator will not allow the passage of electricity. So a dielectric is such an insulator or insulating material that transmits electric field without conducting. And the capacity of different dielectrics will be different to allow the electric field to pass through it. So, in other words, in the physical sense, it is the resistance offered by a material to the electric field. So when electric field pass through this dielectric material, it will offer some resistance, and this resistance offered will be different for different dielectrics. So how will we differentiate this capacity of resistance to the electric field of different dielectrics? It is done through a quantity which is called dielectric constant. The ability will be different. That means the ability to resist the electric field will be different for different dielectrics. So this ability will be different for different materials and is materialized through a quantity called dielectric constant. Actually, we have already learned about dielectric constant. It is also called relative permittivity, that is epsilon r. And what is epsilon r? Epsilon r is equal to epsilon by epsilon 0, and epsilon is called what? Absolute permittivity, and this one is a constant. Epsilon 0 is a constant. And what is the meaning of this? If air is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 by r square. From the previous classes we know, if there are two charges, say q1 and q2 at a distance r between them, and if these two charges are placed in air, the force between them will be 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 by r square. Now if the same two charges are placed in a medium, so here the medium is air, the medium between two charges will be air in the first equation, and for F medium the two charges are placed not in air or in vacuum, it is in some medium. Then what is the equation for the force? And in that case, the equation for the force will be 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2, 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r into q1 q2 by r square. So here there is a term that is epsilon r. Here there is no epsilon r. You know the reason? The reason is for air the value of epsilon r will be 1, or the relative permittivity will be 1. That is why F medium is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 epsilon r into q1 q2 by r square. Now we may take the ratio of F air by F medium, and if you take this ratio, then we can see that here similar terms will be will cancel each other, that is q1 q2 and 4 pi epsilon 0 will be cancelled, r square will cancel, and finally what is remaining is epsilon r. That means force between two charges in the ratio of force between two charges in air to the force between same two charges at the same distance of separation in a medium will be equal to the relative permittivity. So this way we can define relative permittivity or dielectric constant. That is, the dielectric constant is the ratio of electrostatic force between two charges at a certain distance in air or vacuum to the electrostatic force between the same two it should be TWO. Two charges, there should be here, sorry, charges at the same distance in medium. So why the medium is either air or vacuum? Because in this case the value of epsilon r is equal to 1, and for the medium the value of epsilon r will be different. It will be different for different medium. Actually, anyway, it will be greater than 1 for any medium other than air or vacuum. Now, what are the different values of this epsilon r? For metals, this relative permittivity is infinity. And for vacuum or air, as we have already seen, it is 1. For paper, the value of dielectric constant is 3.5. For mica, the value of dielectric constant is 5.4. And finally, water. For water, the value is 80. So this way, different materials are offering different resistance to the passage of electric fields. Then generally, electric fields are divided into two, polar and non-polar. So what are polar and non-polar dielectrics? First, we will discuss a non-polar dielectric. So in the absence of an electric field, if the centers of positive and negative charges coincide, then they are called non-polar molecules. So what is the meaning of these centers of positive and negative charges? You know, in the case of an atom, at center there is a nucleus, and the charge of the nucleus is positive. So we can assume it as a cloud, right? A cloud of positive charges, and the center of the cloud of the positive charge will be here. Then similarly, this nucleus is covered by electrons at different shells. That means around this positively charged nucleus or positively charged cloud, there is another cloud of electrons surrounding the cloud of positive charge. So in such a case, we can see that the center of this negative cloud and the center of this positive cloud overlap each other, or the center of both negative and positive clouds will be at the same point. That means they overlap. So in the absence of electric field, that is E is equal to 0, if the centers of both coincide, then they are called non-polar molecules. That means what? Now there is no net polarity. There is no net positive polarity. There is no net negative polarity. So since there is no net polarity, we can say they are non-polar molecules. Examples for non-polar molecules are H2, O2 and CO2 molecules. Then similarly, there are polar molecules. In the case of polar molecules, it will be just opposite. That means in the absence of electric field, if the centers of positive and negative charges does not coincide. So here the centers of positive and negative clouds are coinciding, or they are overlapping, and in the case of polar molecules, they will not coincide. They will not coincide means the centers of positive and centers of negative clouds will not be coinciding, or they will not be at the same point. So here again we can see that there is a positive cloud, and the center of this positive cloud is somewhere here. Then there is a negative cloud again, and for the center of this negative cloud, the center of this negative cloud is somewhere here. In other words, the centers does not coincide, right? The centers does not coincide, and if the centers does not coincide, there will be a net polarity, or there is a, you can see there is a positive polarity, there is a negative polarity. So these are called polar molecules. And the examples for polar molecules are HCl and H2O. H2O molecule and HCl molecule are examples for polar molecules. Then what happens when such a dielectric material or a dielectric material is placed in an electric field. So here these circles represent different molecules for which both the positive and negative clouds coincide, so that there is no net charge. For the first circle, you can see there is one positive and one negative, and these are overlapping. Therefore, there is no net charge. There is no net charge for these molecules. Now, when we apply electric fields, this arrangement of the charges or the arrangement of these positive and negative charges will change. So here, when electric field is applied, positive charge has a tendency to move in the direction of electric field, and negative charge will have a tendency to move in a direction opposite to that of the electric field. And as a result, you take the first molecule. For the first molecule, previously the center of positive and negative charges are coinciding. Now, when electric field is applied, this negative charge has a tendency to move in a direction opposite to field. So, this will split such that negative charge has an orientation towards the opposite side of electric field, and positive charge has an orientation towards the direction of electric field. So this way, both the positive and negative charges will orient, and as a result, you can see now the new arrangement of the charges will be as shown here. Now, in the interior of this material, the net positive and net negative charges will be equal, or the total positive charge will be equal to total negative charge. So as a whole, it will be 0. For example, here you can see that there are 3 positive charges and there are 3 negative charges. Since these 3 positive charges will be cancelled by the 3 negative charges, the net charge in the interior of this dielectric will be 0. But there is a negative charge outside this camp, and there is a positive charge outside this camp. And this will give a net positive charge at the end B of the dielectric, and there is a net negative charge at the end A of the dielectric. So in short, even though this dielectric doesn't have any net charge, by the application of electric field, this dielectric get a net positive and negative charges at the 2 ends of this dielectric. So this is what happens when we apply electric field. So even though the net charge is 0, when we apply electric field, this dielectric will get a net polarity. That means there is a net negative charge at the end A, there is a net positive charge at the end B, right? So if there is no electric field, the orientation is like this, so there will not be any net charge at A or B. Okay. Now you can say there is a net negative charge or net negative polarity at a net negative polarity at B, or now we will say the dielectric is polarized. Now this is a polarized electric field. So with the application of an electric field, we can polarize a dielectric. And it is very clear that this polarization will depend on the electric field. If the strength of the electric field is very high, the polarization will be very quick, right? There will be more elongation for these charges here, right? And if the strength of the electric field is very feeble, then there will not be much shift from the for the positive and negative charges from their centers, and there will not be an effective polarization taking place if the electric field is weak. That means polarization depends on the strength of the electric field, or we can say polarization is proportional to intensity of the field. And capital P represents polarization, therefore P is proportional to E. Therefore we can write P, polarization P is equal to a constant into E, where chi, this letter is called chi. Chi is called electric susceptibility. Now we can define electric susceptibility by taking the ratio of P by E, right? If P is equal to chi into E, then chi is equal to P by E. Therefore, electric susceptibility is defined as the ratio of electric polarization to the applied electric field. So, chi is equal to the ratio of polarization to the applied electric field. So, different electric field will produce different polarization. If the strength of the electric field is less, then polarization will be less. If the strength of electric field is more, then polarization will be more. And different dielectrics will be having different electric susceptibility. An important application of these dielectric materials is in a device called a capacitor. Capacitors are usually used to store the electric charge. So, electric capacitance, we will define electric capacitance. The measure of the ability of a conductor to store charges is known as the capacitance or capacity. Capacity is actually an old name, so it is called capacitance. So, capacitance is defined as the ability of a conductor to store the charges. The device which is used to store charge is called capacitor, and it is found that at any instant the charge stored in a capacitor is directly proportional to the potential applied across it. So when a potential is applied across a conductor, there will be a charge flow, and the charge storage is directly proportional to the potential applied. So if Q represents the charge and V represent the potential, then we can say that Q is proportional to V, or Q is equal to a constant into V. And what is that constant? That constant is called capacitance. So Q is equal to CV. Q is equal to a constant into V. Therefore, Q is equal to CV, where C is the capacitance of the capacitor. And the unit of capacitance is farad, and the symbol is F. Now, we may define 1 farad. So, from this equation, you can see that capacitance is equal to Q by V. Since capacitance is equal to Q by V, capacitance is measured in farad. Therefore, farad is equal to Q is measured in coulomb, and potential is measured in volt. So, therefore, farad is equal to coulomb by volt. In other words, 1 coulomb by 1 volt should be equal to 1 farad. So, how will you define? If 1 coulomb charge raises the potential of a conductor through 1 volt, then its capacitance is called 1 farad. So, if 1 coulomb charge raises the potential of a conductor through 1 volt, then the capacitance of the capacitor is 1 farad. Next, from the relation Q is proportional to V, we may plot the relation between Q and V. So here we are taking Q along x-axis and the potential V along y-axis, and this equation says Q is proportional to V. That means as the value of Q increases, the value of V should also increase. That means, so with the increase in Q, there is a corresponding increase in the potential V. That is the meaning. If there is a increase in Q, there is a corresponding, an equal increase will be present in the case of potential also. So this is how we get the shape of QV graph. Then we may find the area of this QV graph. And what is area in this case? Here you can see that we can construct a right angled triangle, And for right angle triangle, area is equal to half BH, with the base is represented by Q and height is represented by V. Therefore, half BH will become what? Half QV. But what is Q? Q is equal to CV from the previous discussion. Therefore, in place of Q, we may write CV. So, this is equal to half CV into V, which is half CV square. And this half CV square is actually the energy stored in the capacitor. So, this equation we will see shortly. We will derive this equation shortly. So, the point is area of QV graph represents energy stored in a capacitor. Then we will discuss about parallel plate capacitor. What is a parallel plate capacitor? As the name suggests, there will be two plates. There will be two metal plates which are parallel. So you can see two plates or two parallel plates here. And now we can assign some charge to these plates with the positive potential is connected to one plate and negative potential to the other plate. And the positive potential will charge the plate by with the positive charge, and the negative potential will charge the plate with the negative charges. So this way we can store the charge in these plates, right? This way we can store the charge in this parallel plate capacitor. And if V is the potential of the cell and D is the distance between the plates with A the area of these plates, we can find the capacitance of this parallel plate capacitor. It is found that capacitance depends on area, because as we increase the area, it can store, this plate can store more and more charges. So capacitance is directly proportional to area of cross section of this plate. It is inversely proportional to the distance of separation. Therefore, combining both, we can say C proportional to A by D. Or we can say C is equal to A constant into A by D. That constant is nothing but permittivity. With this we have already defined. So C is equal to epsilon into A by D is the equation for capacitance, where epsilon is equal to epsilon 0 into epsilon r. Therefore, capacitance C is equal to epsilon 0 epsilon r into A by D. And in the case of a parallel plate capacitor with the air between the plates, so what is the function of this epsilon? It will give the it will give the resistance offered by the medium. So if the space between the two plates is filled with air, then how this equation will become? In such a situation, the value of epsilon r will be 1. And if the value of epsilon r is equal to 1, what is the equation? We can see that the equation for capacitance is epsilon 0 into A by D, because the space between the two plates is filled with air or vacuum. Therefore, epsilon r is equal to 1 and C is equal to epsilon 0 into A by D. Then that means the space between the two plates can be filled with a different medium. Then for another medium, suppose we take mica to fill the space between the two plates. Then for mica, we have seen that the value of dielectric constant is 5.4. Now, if the space between the two plates is filled with the mica, what will be the capacitance? We can see that the capacitance C is equal to epsilon 0 epsilon r into A by D, such that epsilon r is equal to 5.4. So this is equal to 5.4 into epsilon 0 A by D In other words, the capacitance increase 5.4 times than from the case where the capacitance is epsilon 0 into A by D for a air filled capacitor, right? So when we take dielectrics with higher and higher dielectric constant, we can see that the capacitance of this capacitor will increase gradually. So for a mica, you can see the capacitance is 5.4 into epsilon 0 into A by D. Not only mica, we can fill the space between the two plates with different dielectric materials. So this is how we are placing the dielectric between the two plates. And if this is the dielectric, for example mica, then its capacitance is 5.4 into epsilon 0 A by D. Now in place of mica, we may use some other material also. Say take silicon. So if the space between the two plates is filled with silicon, we can see the value of epsilon r is 12 for silicon, and for silicon the value of capacitance will be even more, right? That means it will be 12 into epsilon 0 into A by D. That means if the space between the plates is filled with silicon, then capacitance increases further. So this way we can increase the capacitance of a capacitor by placing dielectrics with a higher value of dielectric constant. Now how will we find the energy stored in a capacitor? So this is the arrangement. We have a capacitor here, and this one is connected to a cell. Let V be the potential of this cell, and we are charging this capacitor. Initially from suppose there is no charge present in the capacitor, and when we connect the cell, the charge increase by a small quantity, say dq. So we have to do a work to increase the charge from 0 to say dq. So that work done is equal to dw equal to v into dq. This equation we have already seen. Therefore but C is equal to Q by V from our previous discussion. Therefore now we can rewrite this dW with Q by C. So dW is equal to Q by C into dQ, or W, that means this differential is taken to the other side. This will become integral. So W is equal to integral Q by C into dQ. Now what is the limit of integration? So we assume that initially there is no charge present. That means what? So the variable quantity is dq. So how the charge dq is changing? Dq is changing from 0, right? Because initially there is no charge present in the capacitor. So the value of dq changes from 0 to a maximum value. So initially there is no charge present in the capacitor. So the initial value is 0. And suppose the maximum value is Q. That means when we connect to this cell, the charge increases from 0 to this way to a maximum value of Q. This capital Q represents the maximum charge stored in this capacitor. Then what is the result of integral Q dq? The value of integral dq is, of course, it is q square by 2. Therefore W is equal to 1 by C into q square by 2 with a limit of integration from 0 to q. So first we may put q is equal to q, then q is equal to 0. All of us know to perform this integration. Therefore it is 1 by 2c into q square minus 0, which is nothing but q square by 2c. So this is the work done to charge the capacitor from 0 to a maximum value of q. And this work will be stored as the potential energy of the capacitor. and U is the symbol of potential energy. Therefore, U is equal to Q square by 2C. Q square by 2C is the potential energy stored in the capacitor. But Q is equal to CV from the previous discussion. So Q is replaced with CV, or it is C square V square by 2C. C and C will cancel. Therefore, what is remaining is 1 by 2 into CV square, or half CV square. U is equal to half CV square is another equation for the energy stored in a capacitor. But there is one more relation possible, because we know C is equal to Q by V. Therefore, this C is replaced by Q by V. That means it is 1 by 2 into Q by V into V square. So V and one of the V of V square will cancel. Therefore, U is equal to half QV. So half QV is another equation, or the third equation for the energy stored in a capacitor. So this way we have three sets of equation for energy stored in a capacitor. So how these capacitor connections are made in a circuit? There are two different types of capacitor connections. One is a series connection, other one is a parallel connection. We have already learned the connection of resistors. That means they can be connected in the series mode, or they can be connected in the parallel mode. First, we will discuss the series mode of connection of the capacitors. For simplicity, we assume that there are only two capacitors. So two capacitors are connected in series to a cell. So this is the connection, and in the case of a resistor also, this potential V will be divided across these capacitors. So V1 is the potential across first capacitor, say C1, and V2 is the potential across the second capacitor, say C2. So V is equal to V1 plus V2. But what is V? V is equal to Q by C, right? V is equal to Q by C. Therefore, V1 is equal to Q by C1. Why? Because the same charge is present. The same charge will be present in C1 and C2. So there is no Q1, there is no Q2, there is only Q. So V1 is equal to Q by C1. C1 is the capacitance of the first capacitor. Similarly, V2 is equal to Q by C2. Therefore, V is equal to Q by C1 plus Q by C2. Here Q is a common term. Therefore, we can rewrite this equation as Q into 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2. And what is V by Q? So when this Q is taken to the other side of the equation, it will become this LHS will be V by Q. So when LHS is made V by Q, this equation is V by Q is equal to 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2. And what is V by Q? V by Q will be 1 by C. Therefore, you can see that 1 by C is equal to 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2. Right? So what is the C here? C is the effective capacitance, right? And what is 1 by C? 1 by C represent reciprocal of the effective capacitance. So we want to find the effective capacitance C. That means 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2 is equal to C1 plus C2 by C1 C2. That is 1 by C. Therefore, what is C? To take C, you just take the inverse of this equation, that is C1 C2 by C1 plus C2. So effective capacitance of two capacitors when they are in series will be C effective is equal to C1 C2 by C1 plus C2. Once again, this is the effective capacitance when two capacitors are in series, and 1 by C is the reciprocal of the effective capacitance. So this is the case of two capacitors. Now suppose that we have three capacitors like C1, C2 and C3. In this case, what will be the effective capacitance? For two capacitors, 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2. Then for 3, of course, it will be 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2 plus 1 by C3. So this is the effective capacitance for 3 capacitors in series connection. Similarly, we can find the effective capacitance in the case of a parallel connection. And for a better understanding of the parallel connection, I am keeping the connection of series connection as such. And parallel means this way we can connect, that means both capacitors are connected to the potential. Or you can see that here the both ends of C1, that means both ends of C1 is connected to the cell, and both ends or both plates of C2 is also connected to the cell. But here only one plate of C1 is connected to cell. Here also only one plate of C2 is connected to cell. But parallel connection means both plates will be connected to the voltage source. So that is how the connections are different. Now the charge Q flow like this, and at this junction it will be split as Q1 and Q2, such that Q1 will flow through C1 and Q2 will flow through C2. That is, Q is split as Q1 and Q2, or Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2. So Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2 is the basic principle of what this parallel connection. And for a series connection, you can see V is equal to V1 plus V2. So with the V is equal to V1 plus V2, we can find the effective capacitance. And here with the Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2, we can find the effective capacitance. Now Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2, and Q is equal to what? CV. And here you can see that both C1 and C2, or both plates of C1 and C2 are connected to the cell. Therefore, same potential is coming across C1 and C2. Right? Therefore, the equation CV will become what? Q1 is equal to C1 into V, because C1 is the capacitance and V is the potential connected to C1, and Q2 is equal to C2 into V. Therefore, we can see that Q is equal to C1 V plus C2 V, and V is a common factor. Therefore, V into C1 plus C2, and this you are taking to the left hand side. So it is Q by V. Q by V is equal to C1 plus C2. And what is Q by V? So Q by V should be C. From this relation, Q by V should be C. Therefore, C is equal to C1 plus C2. So C is equal to C1 plus C2 is the effective capacitance of two capacitors which are in the parallel mode of connection. Then this way we can find the capacitance of three capacitors which are in parallel mode. So if C is equal to C1 plus C2 is the effective capacitance for two capacitors, then what will be the effective capacitance for three capacitors? It will be C is equal to C1 plus C2 plus C3. So this is the effective capacitance for two capacitors which are in parallel combination. Now we may just compare the effective capacitance of two capacitors in both the series and parallel mode. Suppose we had two capacitors having same capacitance 10 microfarad. Microfarad is the practical unit of capacitance. Not only microfarad, there is picofarad and millifarad. Milli is not commonly used. Mostly we use micro and pico. So millifarad is equal to 10 raised to minus 3 farad. Microfarad is equal to 10 raised to minus 6 farad. Pico is equal to 10 raised to minus 12 farad. So 10 microfarad is the capacitance of each capacitors. Now what will happen if these two capacitors are first connected in series? In series, we know effective capacitance will be C1 C2 by C1 plus C2 from the previous discussion. Therefore, substituting for C1 and C2, you can see that it is 10 into 10 divided by 10 plus 10, that is 100 by 20, and that is equal to 5. So 5 microfarad is the effective capacitance when two 10 microfarad capacitors are connected in series. Now suppose we are connecting these two in parallel mode. Then for parallel mode, we have seen that effective capacitance will be C1 plus C2. Therefore, it is 10 microfarad plus 10 microfarad, that is equal to 20 microfarad. Right? So, the two 10 microfarads are giving two different values for series and parallel. That means when they are in series mode, the effective capacitance will be decreasing. Right? Or the effective capacitance is less than the value of the C1 and C2, which is 10 microfarad each. And when they are series, the effective capacitance is more than the values of C1 and C2, again which is 10 microfarad each. So this is the difference between the values of effective capacitance in the two different modes. So series means, so this is how you are connecting series. Parallel means this is how you are connecting parallel modes. We have seen already. Now we may just compare these connections. So we can summarize like this. For series combination of capacitors, charge is same in each capacitor. That means Q, Q, Q. In all three cases it is Q, but potentially is divided, or the potential is distributed in inverse proportion to capacitances. That is V is equal to V1 plus V2 plus V3. In the case of parallel combination, potentially is same. That means V, V, V. In all the cases, it is V only, but charges will be distributed. So Q1, Q2 and Q3. So here charges are distributed, and here potential will be distributed. So this is how these are different. Okay. So that's all about dielectrics and capacitors, and with this we are winding up here. Thank you for watching.